Hey everyone, day 3 for the Congress unit. Just 2 slides today. I'm not sure how exciting this is, but it is important that we make sure we all know Bill to a law. So we'll get to it. Where we start will be congressional leadership. Now, this is the congressional leadership. It's very similar in the House and the Senate. So in the House. And we gotta be careful too when we say Congress. Congress generally means House only, but Congress can also be referring to the legislative branch, so the House and the Senate. So either way is fine. But so the House, there's a Speaker of the House at the very top. So he's always going to be from the majority party, he or she, and always be from the majority party. And even though they're chosen, even though it's supposed to be the leader of the entire House, it's just chosen from the majority party. There is also, so you have sort of the speaker here, and there's a majority party leader and a minority party leader. So the majority leader is second. Let's say the Democrats controlling the House. So they have the speaker, and they have next in line would be the majority leader in terms of power. Below the majority leader and the minority leader, each party has whips. Whips, whip up support or round up support. Sometimes you hear they count noses. Basically, whips will figure out how representatives are, what their view is on a bill, and they'll try to push them to whatever the party wants. Sometimes they'll try to like make deals with them, or really kind of coerce them to support the side the party wants. They round up support, and there are, when you go to the Senate also has a majority leader, and the Senate has a minority leader, minority party, and they also have whips. But the Senate's a little different in the sense that the head of the Senate is technically the Vice President of the United States. So it's kind of a conflict there maybe with the two branches. But the Vice President doesn't really have any power on a day-to-day basis in the Senate. The only thing the Vice President gets to do is break a tie. So if it's a 50-50 tie, the Vice President gets to cast the deciding vote. And so generally the Vice President is not going to be there at the Senate unless he or she thinks there is a really close vote that they may have to break a tie. So the President pro tem or tempore is usually just an old person from the majority party. They get to sort of preside over the Senate, and no extra special power there either. They just get to sit up there. President pro tem is it means president for the temporary, for the time being. So, but it's such a symbolic position. The real leader of the Senate is the majority party leader. In the Congress and working together with the executive. I have a couple budget issues here. I don't think that we need to really worry about these, so I'm going to breeze over those. But there was this bill passed in 1974, Budget Impoundment Control Act, and basically all it was Congress wanted a little more control over the budget and they took some power over it from the president. Nixon was in the process of people were starting the process of impeachment, even though he resigned first, and so they saw it as an opportunity. So that's when the Congress created the Congressional Budget Office, and they created committees dealing with the budget in each house. Gramm-Rudman's bill was just a way to try to hopefully balance the budget, but I'm going to hold off on that. Oversight, if you ever hear oversight, congressional oversight, the executive branch, it is basically like overseeing or overlooking the executive agencies, which again we'll do in another chapter. But so Congress passes bills and they fund these agencies, like the FBI or the CIA or whatever. And so oversight is to make sure that they are not abusing their powers, that they are spending money correctly, that they're not being discriminatory or something. So Congress oversees the executive branch agencies. All right. Now, how a bill becomes a law. So I put it on just something I found online here. Let me get myself out of the way. Over here on the right. And so, maybe it's a little confusing. I don't know. But basically, a bill gets introduced maybe in the House and the Senate at the same time, or maybe it goes all the way through the House and then the Senate. But let's just say for our purposes, the bill gets introduced in the House and the Senate at the same time. It will go to a committee or a subcommittee, right? So even smaller than a committee. And it basically, again, most bills die in committee. they're going to possibly be, the bill will possibly be changed here. And if it's in the House and the Senate at the same time, the changes could be different in each House. So it goes into the committee here in the House and it passes and it goes to the full House. And then it's done. I mean, it passes the full House, let's say. Again, it could fail in committee. It could not make it out of committee. It could fail there in a vote. It could fail in the full House. But at the same time, we'll say it's going through the Senate. So it goes to committee and it's been marked up or changed in a different way, and then it passes the full Senate. So if the bill passes the full House and the full Senate, if it's the same, then it's just going to go to the president. But often the two versions are different. So that's when it has to go to one of those conference committees. So a conference committee is going to be made up of members of both houses, and they will work on a compromise version. They'll get together and they'll see what they can do to kind of combine the two bills and make this one simple single version. And then that bill will go back to the full House and the full Senate, and they will vote again. And they could fail it, but they'll probably all vote the way they did before. Then they would pass it. If they do pass it, it goes to the president. The president can sign or veto. If he vetoes, then Congress can override if 2/3 of the House and separately 2/3 of the Senate. So if both houses have 2/3 and they vote to override the president's veto, they can do that and pass it, which that's very, very rare. So I use an example. Most years on this topic, and when George W. Bush was in office, he had talked about he wanted to build a fence on a part of the border, like Trump talks about a wall. But he wanted to build a fence. And so Congress had a bill, and both houses were controlled by Republicans, but it was a fence bill. And it was not going to be on the entire border with Mexico. It was, we didn't know how much. So the bill got introduced in the House and then separately in the Senate. And so it goes to its committee, and in committee, and then in the full House and full Senate, the bills became totally different. So the bill in one House, they would say, we're going to build it on this, 950 miles of the border, and we're going to make it out of this material, and we're going to, here's how we'll build it, and whatever. And then they, we're going to, one House said they were going to have a double layered fence, which basically, looking down from above, it would just be two fences, and with a little space in between. And the other House said we're going to have a triple layered fence, and so there'd be basically 3 fences. So the thinking would be if people were to get over or get through or under one fence before they could do the same to the next fence, Border Patrol would hopefully get to them. That's what the rationale was. So they had to decide then. So since one House said a double layer and the other House said a triple layer, and there could be different heights and different material and whatever, it had to go to a conference committee, and the conference committee then got together and had to figure out where are we going to do a double layered, where are we going to do a triple layered, where are we going to build it, because we're not doing the whole border. And so they ended up going to a conference committee and compromising on it, and then sending the bill to the full House and the full Senate, and they passed, and they went to President George W. Bush's desk, and he signed it. And so they actually built a fence on some of the border with Mexico that we didn't have before, and then Trump came in with the idea of building a wall. So that I just wanted to give as an example of the process. It is real important that you know the role of the committees, so that you know that these standing committees, that's those committees that you see right after the introduction. So bill get introduced in the House and the Senate, they'll go to standing committees that are related to whatever the topic is. So if it's a bill on something for the military, it would go to the Armed Services Committee. And if it's a bill on natural gas or something like that, it would go to the Energy Committee. And so it goes to that committee that is on that topic. And then they're going to do what they do, which is kill most of them. But the ones that do come out of committee, they will go to the House and the Senate. They'll vote on them. If they need to make changes, to make a compromise, it goes to a conference committee, very temporary committee. And then it goes to the full House and the full Senate. They vote on it, they pass it, they send it to the president's desk. So just under 10 minutes with today's video, but we will stop there. Hopefully everybody's a good day. We have one more day to go over, the stuff on the legislative branch. So thank you very much.